Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. And as I prepare to head back to Portland for the evening, it's just great to be with a dear friend of the program and such a beautiful musician and cat, Don Latarski. Welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show, brother.
Well, it's nice to be back here. Very unexpected in my home, in my studio.
And next time in the Rivers. But I wanted you to talk a little bit about where you're at now in your career and the fact that you say you have more creative ideas coming out of you every day now. Why is this?
Well, it's very simple. When you have the time to do it and you remain curious, then you come up with ideas, I guess. I know I take walks every morning and I just listen to my thoughts. I've always been an experimenter and what I'd call a maker. So that's partly what led me into building these new instruments that I'm putting in water, for example, or getting the strings strummed by wind. And I'm very interested in that. It's not so easy to perform live, needless to say. But it's working out really well, and I think I'm coming up with some interesting, they're not traditional songs, but interesting textures and sounds that are inspiring me quite a lot.
How would it differentiate between Windham Hill, soundscape, ambient background? In your mind, explain to the audience what you're doing. Let's just take water for a minute. How is it? I mean, you've always been an originalist to a degree. You've always wanted to compose original material. Mm-hmm. It's always been about that. So how is this original as it relates to the flow of the let's just take the water.
Well, what we just heard was a number of individual notes that I recorded on, I think it was the electric version of the water guitar. I've got several different ones. And that creates this very soothing sound. I wouldn't call it synthesizer-like because I've never heard that sound before. But when I stack them together, I can then get harmony. I can shift the harmony as this is an evolving piece. But there's no way you would know that was produced on a guitar if you just heard that raw sound. But now that I'm saying that it was, and there are obviously some videos which will back me up on that.
Yeah, what we heard was a guitar in the water.
Right.
Over rushing water.
That's right.
In the background behind while you were riffing over the top of that.
That's right. Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm just trying to actually give the listeners and viewers a little bit of an idea of these songs that I wrote on the last CD called Frozen Moments that have to do with conversation between me as a guitarist and these sounds that I'm able to sort of harvest, if you will, from the river, from the idea that water can be used as a way to cause a string to vibrate. And I got that idea from literally standing on the bank of a creek one day, watching a stick in the water doing this.
Waffling, yeah.
And I thought, well, that's music. If you sped that up, that would be a sound. I mean, right now it's only going like 4 times a second below what we can hear. But I thought, well, you know what? If that'll work with a stick, it definitely work with a guitar.
So that was the catalyst.
Right.
At the creek.
Yeah.
How long ago? How many years ago was that?
No, that wasn't so long ago. Maybe a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago. Well, I was out doing a lot of filming for these nature videos that I put out with the River CD. That series of 9 videos. Before you go, I got to get you to get a shot of this, what I call my bass stick, which is a new instrument. It's standing up over there in the corner. It's about 8 feet high. And it has a super long piano bass string on it. And then I put it on a 4x4, and then I can tune it, and I have a guitar pickup on it. So I've taken it into the water, but I've also put it on top of the car and gone down this, a back road.
Is that legal, by the way?
Oh, sure, yeah.
When I was with my friend, we were watching that on YouTube last night. My friend's like, the 35 miles an hour down the road.
Oh, yeah, no, that's totally safe.
I
wouldn't recommend trying that. I'm a professional at that sort of thing,
That's the old.
You have to be part stuntman, and I practiced that a lot as a kid,
When you take your walks, you're being impacted by the sounds of all of nature around you, and that will give you ideas for original tunes.
Well, it gives me ideas. Let's put it that way. I mean, I get ideas, and I think, will this work? Let's try this and see what happens. Like yesterday, we had a big storm that came through, but it only lasted about 15 minutes.
It was hard rain, though, for Eugene.
It was very hard, very windy, and I ran out there because there's some tests I wanted to do, some experiments. Like I mentioned earlier, a project I've got coming up has to do with what's called murmuration. And murmuration is like if you've ever seen a school of fish that all turn at once. We've all seen this on nature programs, where they all seem to turn simultaneously as if they were one unit. But could be thousands, tens of thousands of them. I want to create some music that uses this kind of what I would call a pointillistic approach to music, where the sounds are defined by many, many small pieces of sound.
Yeah.
And I actually did a little bit of that on the River CD. There's a track, I can't remember which one it is now, but the chording that's going on, the harmony I should say, it's not chord, it's chords, but it's not strummed chords or anything. It's just made up of little sounds like this. Really, really short, muted sounds on a lot of different instruments, not just one. And then you combine those all together, you might have 50 or 60 notes, or perhaps even more, not sounding simultaneously, but randomly spaced apart. That's the whole point of it. It's like rain. Think of it as musical rain. So I want to be able to paint with those sounds. Again, here's a big thing that freed me up. For years, I was always focused on writing tunes and material that the band could play live. Well, much of this, once I realized I don't need to really be restricted by that any longer. Why do I need to just be focused on the gig, so to speak? Gigs are fine. It's great. It's really fun. Nothing like it.
You have one tonight at the jazz station?
Yeah. But why can't I make these other sounds and just let my imagination kind of go and see what happens to these? Now, it's just total experimentation. A lot of times I don't know what's going to happen. But you show up, you do these experiments, and you get them back here, and then you've heard these sounds and they start to ferment in my brain. And then I think, aha, like a revelation I had the other day with this bird project that I played a little bit of for you is like, well, when we combine sounds of birds with the wind guitar sounds, I started thinking, well, the birds are the melody, the wind sounds are the musical bed, so and I can take these sounds, some of them are happier than others, some of them are a little darker, some of them are like anticipatory or questioning, and you put that on the background, and then you hear the bird sound, and my gosh, it takes you to an entirely different place. And then maybe add in a little bit of water sound or a little bit of perhaps just wind sound in there.
Yeah, and it's so much better than what the word you used before was synthetic. The idea of incorporating this is real nature. Eric Dolphy was channeling this in the 50s. I got to get you some of these excerpts that I transcribed from Dolphy. He was obsessed with bird sounds and incorporating that into the music. Could you play an original tune right now?
Well, let's see.
And what kind of guitar is that? I mean, that's a custom-made guitar.
Yeah. This thing is... This is the main guitar used on the Frozen Moments CD. It's a baritone, so it's got a much longer neck, and a little bit harder to play for that reason. The strings are very thick. But the low string is an A, which is the third string on a 4-string bass. So this is vibrating at 55 hertz. So, the thing is, it's a regal sound. It's noble. And you don't have to play a lot of notes because when you're that low in the register, it's like all bass players know this. If you play too many notes together, it just sounds like mush. So, but if you space things out a little bit, it sounds absolutely gorgeous. This thing has been extremely inspirational. And I wrote most of the new tunes on this guitar.
Inspirational, like a sonic inspiration?
Yeah, it's like when you pick it up, it just makes you feel really good. When you play anything on it, just about, as long as you know,
I dig.
as long as you're not trying to play like, bar chords and stuff like that, traditional guitar stuff. You have to space your notes out.
You know, something that caught my attention last time, the time signatures of the water flow. You said to me there is time,
In the water.
sometimes there's no time. Yeah.
Yeah,
What is that? Can you go deeper on that? Because I'm obsessed with odd time signatures in ensemble work. But
Okay.
this is way. I mean, in nature, how can you? Can you?
It's not a time that is. It's just a. How do I say it? It's feral time. It's just.
Yeah.
It's its own time. I mean, you can't. I don't think you could notate this. And besides,
It's not TikTok time.
Yeah, right. It's not metronomic time. It's its own time. It's its own flow kind of time. So, and that's a lot of what I'm doing with the river guitars. I mean, are like that. There's variation in the tone, but it's randomized. And that's what I love about the organic creation of these sounds. With synthesizer type sounds, it is possible to do random things, but the organic nature of these sounds.
That's the right word, is organic. It's not synthesized.
Right,
organic.
and it makes you feel good. Of course, it's a lot more difficult to get those sounds. I mean, you got to go out in the field, so to speak. It's
right.
It's field work.
Would you say when you came up here and you were when you think back on it, when you were planting trees in Eugene in '73, which is hard labor. Let's be very clear.
Yeah, in fact, we were talking about that last night.
We were.
In fact.
Well, but
I was talking about it with some other people.
Yeah, no, we were. You were told. I said you said there were no. You didn't have any gigs, so you needed to sing for. You had to figure out a way from starving to death. But did this component of organic sound start at that time, or was it even before that in Detroit?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know when it started. I honestly don't. It's just.
It just comes into you. It just can't. It just.
It just seemed like a natural extension of what I was. You go out in nature, you're listening. There's a lot of wonderful sounds, and I just thought, how can I integrate something like what we're doing without just it being a babbling brook or something that anybody can get a hold of? How can I make this a personal transformation, taking that environment and bringing it into a composition?
You think about all the factors of nature as well that go into an effective ensemble is feeling good, listening, reacting to each other, and organic. Mm-hmm. I mean, nothing's manufactured. To me, that at least that's a blend for me. Now, the question I have for you is, how do you bridge the gap, and is it a priority with the water, the 31-minute track, and now you have another track that's 81 minutes long, to play it live? I mean, how can we now? I mean, is that? I'm not going to say is it a priority, or is it something that is keeping you up at night? But I think it is something that we talked about sound healing before. Are there certain spaces that you could incorporate this stuff into? Have you thought about that?
Well, I have, absolutely. I read an article just the other day that the Schiphol Airport, the one
which is where?
In Amsterdam.
Never been there, but yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible airport. I was there about almost 2 years ago. I read an article yesterday where they are using bird sounds. They're broadcasting bird sounds in the airport to make people calmer. And I thought, well, that makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
Because I'm sitting here listening to these bird sounds I've been out recording, and it's like it just makes you feel good. That's part of the inspiration for this. Is they're joyful. Most of them, to my ear, are joyful. Now maybe they're fearful to the birds, but I'm not really sure about that part because I'm not an ornithologist. But they make me feel really good. And I thought, well, this thing I'm working on, obviously there's wind guitar throughout it, but not throughout the whole thing. In other words, I don't want to step on all those beautiful bird sounds all the time with wind sounds. So it kind of ebbs and flows. But the sounds are just, they make me feel good. I took, kind of a rough version of this to Thanksgiving and just put it on. There's a system we were at in the house where The music could project through the whole house. And I don't know what effect it had, but it sure made me feel good.
Yeah, well, it would make anybody feel good that has a soul and a heart. I mean, I think if someone came to Don Latarski and said, Don, we want you to take over the music program at North Texas State, what would be, not to bite off the whole thing, because you'd have to have some kind of curriculum.
Right.
What would be like the essence of the Latarski doctrine as it relate? I mean, you were in academia.
Yeah.
And, you walked away and feel more freedom. Most cats that are in academia today that were former band players, they're doing it for the paycheck. They're doing it for, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not passionate about it or they're not trying to get there, but they're confined to to the academy.
Yeah.
How would you change the academy if someone gave you that opportunity?
Oh my gosh. That's a really difficult question.
It's deep. Just maybe take one or two things that you would do the Latarski doctrine.
Well, the first thing before I get into the doctrine, whatever that is that when the study of music is institutionalized,
Codified.
yeah, that is where it especially in this type of music that we're dealing with, that's where it gets very, very difficult to, I mean, there are people, I've had students who break through, but it takes a really dedicated individual. But I mean breaking through, I mean discovering something that unique that they have to offer. And that is the most difficult thing. I mean, how do you teach that even?
Right. Well, I mean, would you say that the breakthrough, again, this is not based on what the question I just asked you, but would the breakthrough happen easier if they didn't have the impediments of the academy?
Well, some people would argue that.
Right.
For sure.
So how would you, I mean, what, in your mind, give me a couple of things that you would do to sort of break that logjam? Would you try to get rid of some of the I don't know what the pecking, the sort of thing you have to,
what we
the
call
Rubicons you have to pass?
What are called, the requirements.
Thank you. The requirements
of the degree, and they keep, on the way, they keep growing. So in other words,
if they don't stop.
No, and so this is what I saw over the years when I was there, is that more and more of the students' time is being required to, of course, pass and to succeed in that environment. Now, not all of that is bad by any means. I don't want to give the impression that it is. There's some wonderful subjects and areas that you need to study. But there's a lot that people rebelled against, for one thing. Some people were not interested in keyboard studies, and that wasn't their focus at all, but yet you're required to do 2 years of it. And if you're not very good at it, that means you have to spend a tremendous amount of time. People who come in with already having, studied piano since the time they were 6, 7, or 8, fit in, obviously, they have a much easier time of it. And also the people that come into university who have gone through the institutional music programs of grade school and middle school and high school, they've kind of, the curriculum is set up for those people. Let's put it that way.
But have they already been, codified? I mean, have they already been constricted by the fact that they've already been in the...
Sure. Well, I mean, you don't know it at the time. I mean, but there's, things are happening to you. I mean, you're being conditioned in certain ways to think about music in certain ways. And,
right.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just so long as you know that that's what's happening. I mean, very few people do know what's happening.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at, is that you talk about Jimi Hendrix, Pat Martino, Kenny Burrell.
Sure, most of the innovators.
This is what I want to get at, is when did you recognize for Don Latarski that you were merely a conduit for the music coming through you from the heavens, where you were only partially responsible for what was coming out of your apparatus? Because what happens is you get into, once the students pass these requirements,
right.
A lot of it's facility driven, a lot of it's chops driven. It's not
right.
feel driven. It's not your own time feel. So to me, all the legendary people, the iconic cats, whatever, the people that we look at as innovators, recognized that they were merely conduits for the music. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask you when that light went off for you.
Oh my gosh, I think I was really pretty young.
Was there a time that stands out on the bandstand or something you can point to when you just
Yeah,
sort of...
I would probably say I was about maybe 12 years old.
So back in Utica,
Yeah,
back in Detroit, in the Michigan area.
right, back in Michigan.
And what was
Absolutely.
you said you just
Well,
felt...
you know, when you see the reaction of people when you can actually make some music, it's more than that. It's more like when you see that you're opening up a door in people.
The audience.
And that's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
You know, all of a sudden you're getting people to express just feelings. You're enabling them to kind of
Get off.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a very powerful, reaction. Plus, it was getting me off too, so to speak, right? I mean,
Were these at the contest you won the awards at, or like when did they?
well,
occur?
those were nerve-wracking things, but
When you saw people, so at 12 years old, you were seeing that you were able to affect people's hearts and minds,
Right.
and souls,
right. I didn't think of it then in those terms. I
Sure.
just thought, well, these people are feeling really good. I'm making them happy.
And that stays with you over time. I mean, did you have a chance as a professor at the university to also play a lot? I mean, also, is that sort of the sort of dissonance that goes on in academia now, where the requirements keep getting larger and larger, and the real good feeling spiritual bandstand opportunities are shrinking? You didn't go to school for music, I don't think.
Originally, I didn't, but my second degree is in music.
Right, but when there was a steady diet between back in the day of being able to teach and also play, and the same thing lent itself to the students. You talk to any of the guys that went to Berkeley; they were able to play at the Jazz Workshop or Paul's Mall, or they'd fill in for the Duke Ellington Orchestra. When Berkeley, late '60s, early '70s, so there was a balance there. They could play in the combat zone, for the strip clubs, for 3 sets a night, and it was money.
Yeah.
So you got a feeling of being what it was like to actually be a professional and not some droid.
Right.
Do you feel like that is something that is the existential crisis as it relates to creative music?
Well, it's hard in a smaller town like Eugene to get, there's really not a lot of places to play. So I think the younger people are playing among themselves and, trying to...
Or by themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's conducive. I don't know what they're supposed to do, but, playing in isolation is not going to cut it. You got to play in a band.
Yeah, right. You got to be out there you got to be experimenting.
Your band tonight... You want to talk a little bit about that group, because it's actually like truly the definition of fusion.
Yeah, the group is fantastic. A lot of times I feel like I'm along for the ride. I might be the composer, but then when I turn it over to the bass player Mark Schneider and the drummer who lives now in Portland, Jason Palmer, who's really got quite a reputation now.
Palmer, man.
Yeah, he's force of nature.
So you're allowing the rhythm section to really be a third voice.
Well, it's a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, sure, we've got, there's music laying all over this room, and I write the music down, but I don't usually tell them what to play. There's certain times that I say, well, we've got to have this line going on here because it's integral to the song. But most of the time, it's much better to let them just come in and go, oh, this is what I'm feeling about it. If it doesn't work with me, then I'll say, look, let's try something else, But usually, like, we're going to do some tunes tonight. We've never rehearsed because the drummer lives in Portland, but he's so good that with a demo and then the chart, fine.
Maybe work it out at sound check.
We're gonna run through the 2 or 3 tunes at sound check, yeah. And if it, for some reason, which is very rare, it doesn't come together, we just won't play it, but I don't expect that'll happen. It's never happened before.
Yeah.
So
Palmer's a younger cat?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's probably in his 40s now.
Right.
But, what a guy. And you see, the other thing about the group that's just one of the most amazing things is we've been together a long time. So as soon as we hit the bandstand, from basically the first note, there is a synergy going on. There is an
simpatico there.
There's an understanding.
It's just trust.
Yeah.
You guys were playing at that sports bar that got the TVs. That's how far back it goes,
Yeah.
right? When they got replaced by TVs, right?
Right.
That was very emblematic of the times.
That's right. We did. But on the other hand, we developed a style there, unbeknownst to the people or to the owners or whatever. You know, we were
Nobody was really paying attention.
We
You
were
could
working
just
stuff out.
you could just burn away.
Yeah, some people were paying attention.
Yeah,
for
I bet.
But we really, that's where I really became a finger stylist.
Interesting.
You know, on the guitar for sure. Yeah,
You stopped using a pick then?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did that enhance your or?
Well, it you know, a lot of guys use this hybrid thing. I might have covered that before, where you hold the pick, you know, the normal way, and then you use these two fingers, and that works really well. But I just found that if I just went all fingers, I liked it better. I like the tonality of it. I like the softness, and really, I'm barely using any fingernails these days at all. I've abandoned the artificial fingernail completely, and I'm just back to the normal thing, which is mostly, it's a very soft sound. And I'm also using unwound strings. So what I was going for on Frozen Moments, this relates to what I was just talking about, was this super smooth tone. And this is a funny combination of jazz guitar strings on acoustic guitar.
Absolutely.
Most people don't like that or necessarily go for it. It's not as bright sounding. But to me, it gave me just this tone I was really looking for.
Kesey, Ken, last time you said that the times that you did collaborate with Kesey, they were crazy.
Yeah, we didn't do much collaborating. It was mostly just these sort of spontaneous
Can you
events.
talk about one? I mean, just one. I'm writing a book on the pranks. I'm writing.
Are you?
Yeah, and I really want a story from Latarski.
Oh my God, I
about
don't have very many really.
Just one. I mean, just anything. Because you talked about Babs' the Fourth of July parties, but
right, yeah.
But with Kesey, I mean, how did that? What was it? I mean, because he's done. So, I mean, John Swan, who's one of your students,
Yeah.
they went to, they searching for Merlin. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
going.
he had a lot of interaction with Ken, as far as I know, and I just be at events or parties.
What event? I mean, it was,
Well, I think I was at an event at Mason's house one time. This goes back quite a few years, and his personality was very, bigger than life, as you probably have come to find out.
Absolutely.
So he was usually the attention of what was going on in the room. And then, he did those shows with Mason.
Time and Rivers Flowing.
Yes, and Time Rivers Flowing. I didn't play on those.
You weren't on those.
No, I
because
wasn't
Art
on
Maddox was on those.
Yeah, they didn't have another guitar player.
They didn't.
They had banjo, which was George Rellis, and I believe they had mandolin, and then, of course, acoustic bass and Art, and Mason played the guitar parts. There wasn't really a lot of improv type stuff going on there, so I probably wouldn't have fit into that very well anyway.
But what was defining? Even if it was just a party, there was a time when you.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ken really loved performing arts, right? And
improv and magic.
Yeah, right. So I mean, I'm not sure what he was doing at that party, but there was some kind of thing going on that was, I mean,
But he just pull you in. He's like, Latarski, come in here. Like pick up the guitar, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I was there playing, and he knew I could play, so I was brought into the cacophony and to the craziness. Oh, it's
it's deep.
I didn't keep track of it at the time. I didn't think anything of it.
You
really.
didn't.
It was just another crazy party, with Ken.
Just
and Babs,
Babs was out of control, but Babs was playing the. Do you go to play at Tsunami? I just went over to see Scott at Tsunami.
Okay, we're going to do a gig there.
You're going to do a gig there.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to get my book in there. I think it would be a perfect the cats.
Absolutely.
You talk about Tsunami because Scott especially has been that store's been on the brink a bunch of times.
Yeah,
and he has really rallied the troops to keep it going. And there's pictures of Babs and Kesey. There's a great stage there, nice old grand piano. I'm not even sure if it's in tune or not, but it's just you would talk about the legacy of Tsunami?
Yeah, there have been some great shows there. We've done some shows there ourselves, and it's just, who doesn't like playing around a bunch of books, for one thing? I love books, and it's a cool place, and I thought, I want to perform the River Suite. So we're going to do that.
Well, there you go.
We're going to do that there on March 14th.
That's my birthday.
With, good.
Yeah, no, it's just
That's a good reason to come up. and I got some other players who are going to...
Who we got going? I want to know these cats.
Okay, well, Mark's going to be there, Mark Schneider.
Yeah.
He's going to play a variety of different things. I need a third player, but we're going to do more than just the 31-minute River Suite. But I've got another great, one of my former part-time students. I call him part-time because he was a jazz major at school. In my area, it was called studio guitar. But his name is Jack Radsliff, Radsliff. Great player, really doing some beautiful music, writing some cool tunes. He's in Portland now. I gave him the CD and I said, if you are interested in playing acoustic guitar on this, I could really use you. And he listened to it and said, yes, I'm in. So I said, that was it. We're going to do it.
Well, I'll be up for that.
I'll play some videos in the background.
Yeah, maybe, I don't even know. I don't want that we need to be focused directly on the music. But
Yeah.
I guess maybe some nature.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot of work to do between now and then. I did chart the piece out. It was 24 pages long.
Oh.
So I've got to now, I did it by hand. So now I want to put it in the computer, get parts to people. And there's a lot of improv in that piece too. There's a lot of sections that open up.
Before I let you go, I'm not going to let you get away with this. I need you to talk about the clubs that you went to in Detroit.
I didn't go to any clubs.
In the late 60s, though.
I was just a kid.
Right, but by the late 60s, you were definitely in like teenage years or college years.
Well, in 63, I was only 10.
So
I couldn't get into Baker's Keyboard Lounge.
You couldn't go to... Did you ever see Dennis Coffey? Did you ever go to Detroit? Ever?
Very rarely. Very rarely.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't go to any of this. I didn't start going to Detroit until I was in my teens. And at that point, I was really into...
you go to the 20 Grand to see George Clinton and P-Funk and those guys?
Well, I saw a lot of groups there.
Who did you see there?
Okay, well, here's the places we went to.
Yeah.
We went to a place in...
There was a place called the Sewer where Sugar Man played.
Okay,
Searching
I
for
didn't
Sugar
go
Man.
there.
Yeah, they discovered
I saw the
it.
movie.
Yeah, that's right. He was playing with his back to the wall.
Really?
He was so shy that they could not even track his songs with
Yeah.
they had to bring a rhythm section in separate.
I saw so many people back then. They used to have a lot of pop festivals at a place called Meadowbrook.
Really?
Yeah, does that ring a bell?
No, absolutely not. But I mean,
Okay.
this is a
I saw Procol Harum there. This was in...
Amboy Dukes over there.
Oh, I
maybe?
saw the Amboy Dukes so many times.
Nugent was on fire at that time.
He was, yeah. They played in my little town many times because there was a movie theater which stopped being a movie theater and
Right.
it just became a concert hall. So they were modeling themselves. The main places there were Grandy Ballroom, Easttown Theater, a place called the Palladium. There was a place in Birmingham. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe it was the Palladium.
But you were a rocker. You that's why you separate. Tell me your teacher's name again. Sandy or what was it? Steve.
Steve Jerry. That was his sort of.
He was a Johnny Smith.
He was a West Montgomery
freak.
Yeah.
But you were then veering off into psychedelic music. Is that right?
Yeah, I was veering off more into the electric blues kind of, Electric Flag,
Grand Funk Railroad. Kind of that.
I saw
that
them
milieu
play,
there. Yeah.
Right. I saw the Allman Brothers play when people didn't even know who they were.
Right. They might have been the Allman Joys for all you knew at that time. I mean, that was their original name.
I saw Fleetwood Mac. Believe me, this is the absolute truth. Come into a little club, really small, and sat right up on the floor. There was no stage. And I was, I knew all about them at that time, and I was like, I'm in the front row. This is probably the best guitar lesson I ever got in my life. That and seeing Eric Clapton with the original Derek and the Dominoes tour with Duane Allman.
And Jim Gordon on drums?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
this was in Detroit?
That was in Detroit.
See, you were basking over there to a degree. But
Yeah, so I got a lot. Yeah, I was more into the electric stuff. I drew away from the jazz thing from my teacher,
absolutely.
Steve Jerry.
But you couldn't get away from the Motown. So,
gosh,
Did you go see Martha Reeves or the R&B singers there?
Nope, not a single one of them. No, I was into the psychedelic stuff with Russ Gibb. Does that ring a bell? Uncle Russ, I guess, is what he went by on the radio, which I listened to, religiously.
That was a regional cat out of Detroit.
Yeah.
And Seeger was out there too.
Yeah, but I never saw him because he was considered like a greaser. And he wasn't cool among the.
He was a greaser. So what?
Yeah,
explain. I mean, for the younger cats, what is
Uncle Russ was really down on him. Yeah, wouldn't play his music and stuff, and it was just he was like the hot rod driving kind of slick back hairstyle. That's why they were called greasers. Kind of guy. He wasn't like in the counterculture type.
So it was square music, though. It was not.
Well, it was rock and roll. It was straight ahead rock and roll. It was nothing psychedelic about it whatsoever.
Absolutely.
It wasn't didn't have any experimental, at least to my ear. You know, the music that Russ Gibb was playing he was into discovering new people, into also experimental music, and boy, I learned a lot from listening to that. I can't remember the name of the call letters on the station, but I listen to it every week.
I'll talk to Coffee about that. He'll know.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, can you just give an update on Mason Williams and how he's doing? I mean, the guy is...
Yeah, I mean, he's doing great. He turned 81 in August. I had dinner with him 3 weeks ago, he and his wife, and he's doing really well. He had a pretty serious illness this last summer, which he has come through, it looks like, with flying colors. So he was here, in fact, last week. He came over and with his daughter, who handles all of his publishing stuff. And in fact, I worked on a job for him this morning here. But all of his stuff is done here now, which is amazing, and it's been a great education for me. I've learned so much from working with him.
I just feel like he's so flies so below the radar and is such an iconic person. Is there a way to talk about his genius?
Well, his genius is actually on multiple levels. That's why it's kind of hard to get a handle
it's a
on
multi-dimensional thing.
It is. You know, he's got an amazing way with words.
Yeah.
He's a real wordsmith. So he's got that whole writing career part of his, thing, besides the music thing. I mean, that's an entirely different thing. And so he never stops thinking creatively.
He's still churning. He still wants to go.
Yeah, and
he's
also,
still going.
He's an amazing humorist.
Yeah, he's a jokester.
All the shows that I've done with him, and there have been quite a few, and a lot of them were at the Holt Center.
Yeah.
And big places, big shows with the orchestra and everything. I mean, he scripts it out pretty carefully, but his jokes always get a lot of laughs. It's kind of like he's just got his finger on the pulse of what makes something funny.
Well, that's why him and Kesey got along so well too. I mean, they were just always hanging out.
Yeah, and Mason is, wasn't quite as far out as Kesey, but Mason's still got a pretty far out streak too.
He's way out. He's
yeah.
out in his own way. I mean,
Yeah.
and actually, if you really think about it, when he did all that work for the Smothers Brothers, he was breaking down the color barrier on TV.
Yeah,
he was bringing in a lot of acts that were, I wouldn't say unpalatable, but it was sort of a no-no for a while.
That's
so he was progressive in his thinking as well, and he also understood the soul of the music.
Yeah. No, yeah, he did, he did do a lot on that show, and was always pushing the boundaries there, and I think, partly contributed to them getting pushed off the air. But he was definitely going.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah, for sure. He was right in there with them, pushing them to do. We don't know about half the skits that he came up with
that were never ran. Never ran.
They couldn't be shown. They crossed the line. Propriety.
So he was the line stepper.
I
love that cat.
I've heard a lot of stories over the years because we spent a lot of hours together. And he'd come up and say, "Well, I did this or I did that," and they would never let us go through with this.
Can you leave us with a little message, a little melodic message for the people out there? People enjoyed this. People
sure.
are discovering you for the first time. Don Latarski,
sure,
absolute wizard.
Let me turn down a little bit of this reverb here.
Nothing like a third bass string on a guitar. Don Latarski, man. Much love to you, man. And
Thank you.
Have a great gig tonight. We'll be in touch, man.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
It's the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you later.